Bienvenue à la deuxième vidéo et aujourd'hui je vais expliquer l'un des temps les plus compliqués, le parfait. Alors car c'est le grammaire, je continuerai en anglais. So then the perfect tense, I'm sure a lot of you have had this as an EPI or something to brush up on. It's not the most complicated as I said in the intro, but it's just got the most rules, the most things to remember about it, which is what makes it so challenging for students. But don't worry, after today, you will know every single rule and all you need to do. And all you need to do is practice, use this in context. And one day you'll be able to use this tense without even thinking. So let's move on and get onto it. So there are 7 key rules here. And just like the other videos, ideally, you'll pause me now and just look through these 7 rules and see if you can answer these questions. If you can, don't skip ahead, still watch the whole video, but it's just to give you a basis of what you need to know. You need to answer all 7 questions here by the end of this video. We'll start with questions 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to put these together. We'll come back to 5, 6 and 7 later. So question 1 is the fundamental. And here it is. How many parts does the past tense have? Now, this is a very simple concept, but because it differs from English, it is something that as English speakers we get wrong. And that's because there's 2 past tenses in English. I have eaten, he has eaten. You can all accept that that's in the past tense. This morning, I've eaten breakfast. But in English, I could also say, I ate muesli for breakfast. Both those are in the past tense. If you look at the French on the other side, j'ai mangé, il a mangé, j'ai mangé, il a mangé, it wants to show that it's exactly the same thing. You don't have I ate in French. You can't say I played. You can't say I watched. Those things you can't do in French. You always have avoir. In another way, you have to have the have. The j'ai, il a, you never lose that in French. You only ever say I have eaten, I have played, I have watched. The other type of tense doesn't matter. So the past tense for me has 2 parts. And here they are. 2 things you need. First off, you have to have. Remember, I played doesn't exist. I watched doesn't exist in French. You have to have. You have to say, I have played, I have watched. You have to have the have. And here's our verb to have. Avoir. You should know this inside out. It's one of the first verbs you learn in year 7. The second part then, you'll be able to work it out. What would sound wrong in English if I said to you, I have played football? I have eat a sandwich. I have watched TV. You've also got to change that second verb. Now in English, there's a million ways to do this, and I remember teaching it abroad, and sometimes some verbs would really throw kids off. Like they say, I've learned. Like no, I've learned. Where's that T come from? It is so irregular in English. In French, it's a lot more simple and beautiful, and this is all you need to know. The type of verb changes the ending, and that will give us that like ed sound on the end of the second verb. Nice and simple then. If it's an er verb, change it to an e with an accent. So j'ai joué. Sure you've seen that. Ir verbs, you change the ir to an I, and then finally re verbs, the re changes to a u. So 2 parts you need to have. You have to have the have, and then for the second verb, the verb you want to use in the past, you need to change the ending according to whether it's er, ir, or re. Put the two together, and you've got it. I'll give you an example. Avec question 1. Alors, I have eaten. I've taken away avoir at the top, and I've taken away what the er, ir, re changed to. See if you can translate these. So I'll do the first one for you. I have eaten or I ate. Same thing in French. I have to have the have. So I have is j'ai, and then the er changes to an e with the accent. So I'm going to change manger to that. Make sure I got both parts, and I have j'ai mangé. Voilà. Alors, pause me now. See if you can do 2, 3, 4, 5, and have a little look at 6. Be careful with accents on 6. Okay, you should have paused me and you should have answers for the rest of these. Let's have a little look then. We have finished. We have to have the have. So go into the blue at the top, nous avons, and then change the ir to an I, nous avons fini. Voilà. He watched. Regarder is our verb to watch. It's an er verb. We have to have the have. So il a, er changes to an e with an accent, il a regardé. Simple. I have finished. Same thing as number 2. J'ai fini. We have waited. Re verb changes to a u. Don't forget the have. Nous avons attendu. And then he listened. Il a écouté. Just have a little look at that extra challenge. Did you have the have? I took it away. I put it on all 1 to 5. He listened. Remember, in French, you still have to have the have. It's always il a écouté. Right, so we are 4 rules down. See if you can answer the first 4 rules. If you can't, just skim the video back and have another little watch. These 4 rules are must-knows. We're now going to get onto number 5. Okay, so number 5, what happens to irregular verbs? I think you can already guess what happens to irregular verbs. It'd be far too simple just for every verb the ER, IR, RE pattern would work. Irregular verbs are ones that you have to learn off by heart. Now, there's 2 things you need to know for this. The 2 things are here. First off, the good news is that we still have to have the have. That is the same for everything in the past tense. You always have to have the have. That's in blue at the top. The bad news is the ER, IR, RE pattern isn't going to work here. We need to know what these verbs are. They change differently to create what's called their past participle. So you need to know all of these verbs off by heart for GCSE. Key stage 3, you'll be fine with the first 7, but for key stage 4, you need to know all of these verbs and their past participles. Think that's hard? Watch this, it's easy. It goes fait, vu, lu, bu, voulu, été, pris, mis, dû, vécu, funny one that, dit, écrit, connu, su. Voila. Now, how did I learn those? I just sat down one day when I was in year 10 and I wrote them out and I just learned them all, and that's what you need to do. You've got to know these irregular past participles. So let's test you on them now. In the blue, I've taken away avoir. You need to know that. You need to complete it. In the red, I've just done these over here. Fait, vu, lu, bu, voulu. And all you need to do is put them together and see if you can answer all 6 of these questions. Be careful with number 6. Put me on pause now and see what you've got. Alors, let's see what we've got then. I did. We still have to have the have. I have done. I did. Exactly the same thing. You should have written j'ai fait. We saw. We're now using we. Nous avons, voix changes to vu. Nous avons vu. He read, il a lu. I drank, j'ai bu. He wanted, love the way this one sounds. Nous avons voulu. And then he loved. This is a regular verb, so you have to have the have. And then what does the ER change to? Put the 2 together. Il a adoré. I'll accept, il a aimé aussi. Right, so first 5 rules down. We're up to number 5. Put me on pause, see if you can answer all 5 of these questions. Okay, let's go. The past tense has 2 parts. You have to have the have, which is our verb avoir, also known as the auxiliary. You have to change the second verb, which is called the past participle. ER changes to an E with an accent. IR changes to an I, RE changes to a U. Irregular verbs, they don't follow our regular pattern. You still have to have the have, but you need to know how the verb changes. You need to know those off by heart. Okay. 5 down, this is where it gets a bit more challenging, a lot more challenging, and it's because certain verbs act a different way. Okay, so for certain verbs, I've said a handful on this slide, it's slightly more than that, but for certain verbs, you still have to have the have, but you're not using the verb to have, and that's because with these certain verbs, motion verbs, you don't say I have arrived, you say I am arrived. You don't say I have gone, you say I am gone. So for certain verbs, you don't use avoir, you use être instead. And here's our verb être perfectly conjugated for you. For these, this is what you need to know, and you need to use these off by heart. So how are you going to remember which verbs take être and which verbs take avoir? Well, remember, most of them take avoir. There's 2 ways to remember our être verbs. I'm going to talk through you both of them now. So this is the way I found most helpful. I first saw this in 6th form, which is why it looks so old and faded on this video. And my 6th form tutor told me that any verb where you're expressing motion, you don't use avoir in the past tense, you use être. And this is what I've got here. Now, that was really confusing because I thought when I'm playing, I'm moving, but it's not like that. It's a verb that expresses physically your body moving from one place to another or one state to another. So you can see, here we go, il est arrivé, il est monté, il est entré, il est resté, il est sorti. They're all moving. And the bottom one, this is why French is so beautiful, it includes being born, il est né, and dying, il est mort, which is that grave at the bottom, because you're moving into one life, being born, and you're sadly moving out of it at the end with il est mort. So this is the way to remember what verbs take être. If it's a motion verb, that's what you need to remember. Another way looks like this. I've plagiarized this from a website. There's a little way to remember all these different types of verbs and how they do it, and it is Dr. and Mrs. Van der Tramp. So if you write Dr. and Mrs. Van der Tramp on your page, like in red, and then this is a good way, as a spelling mistake on revenir should be an E, this is a good way to remember all of these verbs, to write them out and to learn them off by heart. Simple, this is the way to do it if you prefer this method. One thing to point out, I put at the top of the page, any reflexive verb used in the past takes être as well. So je me lève is I get up. So I got up would be je me suis levé. All reflexive verbs take être as well. Alright, this is the most challenging bit. Not only do you need to know all the rules for avoir verbs, not only do you need to know the verbs that take être, motion verbs, Dr. Mrs. Van der Tramp, but you also need to know that whenever you use être in French, you need to agree. Now, what we mean by agreement is you add something extra for feminine and or for plural, which is what we've got down here. Now, only do this when you're using être verbs, just for the verbs you've just seen, the Dr. Mrs. Van der Tramp verbs. For any others, you don't need to do it. So all we need to do is remember, you add an E for feminine and an S for plural, which is shown at the bottom of this grid. You've got to add that as well. Alright, a lot of rules here. This is just another slide that shows you to add the E for feminine, the S for plural, and an ES for feminine and plural. Let's put you to the test. Alors, I've taken away être, I've given you some infinitives, but nothing else. Pause the video, see if you can answer these three. Remember, feminine and plural. Think about what you need to do. Alright, let's see what you've got. I went is je suis allé. I put the E in brackets there because if you're a female watching this, you need to add that extra E when you're talking about yourself. We stayed is nous sommes restés. It has to have the S on the end. The E is in brackets because if you're talking about a we and it's just girls, then you will need that extra E. I went out is je suis sorti. Again, the E in brackets because you need to add that on if you're feminine. Okay, so far so good. That is the most complex bit. We've gone through every single rule you need to do. Pause me again and see if you can answer them. Alright, let's see what we've got. So the past tense has two parts. You have to have, the auxiliary, you have to have avoir or être, and then you change the second verb. If it's ER, changes to an E with an accent. IR changes to an I. RE changes to a U. Irregular verbs don't follow this pattern. They change completely. You need to know them off by heart. There's a really good list on these slides. Use it. What is the have for verbs of motion? You don't say I have gone. You say I am gone. You need to use être for verbs of motion. You can remember them through Dr. Mrs. Van der Tramp and remember all reflexive verbs in the past tense as well. What must we do to the endings? They have to agree. They have to agree. Those are the 7 rules. This video has talked through the rules, but you need to practice this as much as you can. So this is where we have our next steps. First place to start is the daily tests, 9 and 10 at Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5. Go through these key things, these key rules. They've got everything you need to know. Then GCSE students, go onto your grammar and translation book, pages 50 to 53. A-level students, look at anything to do with the perfect tense in your grammar book for a really in-depth look at it. Alors, thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful. Till the next time.